As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized SEMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a SEMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the SEMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the SEMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
A beautiful Tuesday to all our viewers connecting on ICAN on air this day, Tuesday, 22nd November 2022. I want to welcome you all to another episode where we have come to enrich our knowledge and improve our scope of activities as individual, professional, and also as an institute. Welcome to ICAN on air this day, Tuesday, 22nd November 2022. And I've come like I used to do every Tuesday and Thursday with another topical issue. Are the rising social component of environment, social, and governance, ESG. And these are part of the things we've been discussing lately. You know, it's one of the topics that we had during the World Congress of Accountants. And we have a prepared erudite scholar who will do justice to this afternoon, this evening. No other person than Ezenwa Echefu, FCA, CPA, CMA, NBA. And to start with, is connecting with us all the way from Canada. Ezenwa Echefu is manager financial accounting with Repsol Oil and Gas Canada. His career as professional accountant spans over 28 years in 3 continents: Africa, Europe, and North America. He is currently leading a team of 7 professionals in Repsol Oil and Gas Canada, delivering financial accounting and reporting services. He holds BSc in accounting from the University of Port Harcourt and MBA from Warwick University in UK. He is a chartered accountant in Canada with CPA, CMA, and also a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN, our institute, and chartered manager in UK. Was married and blessed with children. Sincerely speaking, we are out to discuss a very topical issue which we all believe is trending. That is the rising social component of environment, social, and governance, ESG. And like I used to tell you, this is a platform where you can showcase your goods and services, knowing fully well that the program is heard globally, and we have our members who are globally connected, even locally, from the north to the south to the east and west. They are always there every Tuesday and Thursday. On this note, I will be paying small commercials, stepping out to have a little break. And when I'll be coming back, I will come in with our guest for today. Stay tuned. I'll be right back shortly. Yeah, you're welcome back, everyone, and it is my pleasure to have, just like I did in the intro, Mr. Ezenwa Echefu, FCA, all the way from Canada. Mr. Echefu, let me start by saying you're welcome on ICAN on air. And how is the weather out there in Canada?
Man, it's cold.
Pretty cold. I'm sure you're
It is
used to
cold.
the system, and definitely, it's not compared to us here. So we will be talking on a topic called the rising social component of environment, social, and governance. Let me start this way, sir. Due to its relevance and sensitivity, the subject and the concept of environment, social, and governance can be viewed from different prisms. As an expert on the subject, our global viewers will be happy if you can enrich their knowledge through one of the prism or perspectives. Please, let's start with this fundamental, sir. What is ESG?
Yeah, thank you so much for for this opportunity. Let me also say, given the wide range of this thing called ESG, I don't think I'm really an expert, but let's go through it. Um, Before I start talking about it, let's look back to how did we get here.
Hmm.
ESG as a firm came to life sometime in 2006 in a United Nations forum. And the essence was to incorporate these things in the financial reporting of companies and hold companies accountable to what they do to environment, social, and their governance. When they came up with that in 2006, about 63 investment um, companies signed up. It didn't take as much traction. But then in 2017, about 62% of ExxonMobil shareholders voted against management and insisted that the company needs to include in their reports how their operations are impacting the environment, or on the other hand, as well, how the environment is impacting the operations. Then in 2020, at Davos Convention, some group of organizations with the four big four that we have set up. We're looking at this, and they came up with about 22 key performance metrics, and they expanded it to 34. But there are four key pillars that they came up with. One of it is governance. The next one is planet. The other one is people, and the last one is prosperity. Now, these things were led by different members of our four. So that's how we got here. But then what is ESG? It's basically a risk assessment framework for managing the risks and opportunities that the environment and the society creates for the business. And the E stands for environment. How is the company um, impacting the environment where they operate? Social is more of how is this company relating with the stakeholders? Now, watch my language. I said stakeholders, not shareholders.
Hmm.
Stakeholders means everyone. And how is a big company creating value for stakeholders?
Hmm.
And the last bit is governance. Corporate governance, we all know what it is. So those are the three components of ESG.
Hmm. That is a brilliant submission by our guest, taking us from where we started from. How did we get here? And giving us what ESG is all about. As we proceed, sir, I've had opportunity to guest a lot of people on this show, and it gets confusing to what are the differences between ESG, sustainability reporting, integrated reporting. These the three the three others seems confusing. As professional who is vast with these concepts, can they run us through what are their similarities and differences of these three different concepts that I've shared, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. I will default to what Corporate Governance Institute said about the differences between these two.
Okay.
I used to work for Shell, and as oil and gas companies, we produce this fantastic thick document, all in color, which we call Corporate Social Responsibility Report. And we will say how we built houses, built market stores and toilets and schools and all that. Beautiful report. The focus of corporate social responsibility report is the stakeholders, and we're simply telling your employees and our consumers and our clients, communities, these are the things we've done. But in ESG, you're not just talking about that. Your target is the capital market. And if there is anything we know about the capital market, is that they want something that is can be measured, something that you will have a target, something that can track how you are progressing towards that target. So you could say CSR and ESG are about the same thing. The major difference is the measurability. Can we
Hmm.
measure what you're doing? If it is constructing market stalls, that is the thing you want to do, how can you present that to the shareholder and provide a target, provide impact, provide KPIs to measure where you are heading to and what you want to achieve? And how does that tie to your company strategy? So without the ability to quantify and measure, any activity you're doing is CSR.
Hmm.
But if you have
Hmm.
a CSR activity that you can quantify and measure and track and have a KPI around it, then you're in the realm of ESG. Having said that, you still need to be in a position to speak. Whatever you're doing needs to be in a position to speak to the capital market. So if you spend your time doing things that nobody cares in the capital market, then you're not in the realm of ESG, you're probably in the realm of CSR. So it is that focus that really distinguishes the two.
Oh, that is a clear distinction between CSR and the ESG. Should be able to measure, even with targeted focus on things that you need to do, and be able to create a great impact. But I want to state again, sustainability and integrated reporting. Do they have similarity, or there are some distinction too?
Okay, so integrated reporting is a concept that I think the person who came up with that initially was sometime in 2004 by the current King of England. And they have integrated reporting council. And what they were trying to do is to find a way to bring in all these issues into financial reporting. So they have a framework. So it's more of how do you report your ESG effort? How do you report your CSR effort? That's what integrated reporting is. So the relationship between the two is when you determine it and you can measure it, then you can find a way to report it. There are companies, as I said, we could produce as part of our integrated reporting, we produce a financial statement, we produce an addendum to it that is called CSR. a thick document that is probably thicker than, have more pages and more colors and beautiful pictures than the real financial statement itself. Yeah, we've integrated our numbers, we've integrated our story, but there is no measure, there is no KPI.
Mm.
So again, if you go back to ESG, it will be integrated reporting will help you say what you're doing and communicate it effectively to both the stakeholder, all the stakeholders, the shareholders, the capital markets, the community, the government, and all that.
That is brilliant, sir. And let me state here that I'm guesting Mr. Izenwa Chefo, FCA, all the way from Canada. And viewers, you are free to bring in your question as we progress so that we can have more insight into the topic of today. Let me proceed, Mr. Ichefo. Uh, Let me deep down a bit into the paradigm that we're saying. Digging deep means that there are three basic pillars of ESG. Can you educate our global viewers on these three pillars? Run us through some of the practical benefits of ESG.
Okay, that's a good question. One, let me put it this way: one of the challenges of ESG, it's like the elephant that you've asked 12 blind men to describe. Depending on which part of the elephant that they see, they will describe it differently. And if
Hmm.
there is, we'll probably get there, I hope, on when it comes to disclosures. If there is a big challenge, is how can I compare my ESG efforts with another company's ESG efforts? It's Hydra headed and it means different things to different companies and different industries. Having said that, at a very high level, the three pillars of ESG is E, S, and governance. And so the environmental side of it is looking at the impact of your operations on climate change or what climate change risks that you have. Are you consuming natural resources? If it's becoming scarce, what is the impact of those natural resources on your activities? What of pollution? What of waste? So you're looking in that area of the environment. So that's one big pillar of the environment. The second one, which is social, you're looking at your human capital management. And there are companies that have come up with um, models or framework to cost and measure your human capital management. So that's that bit. And then you've got concepts like health and safety for your workers. Coming from an oil and gas background, you can't play with health and safety. It's a very air that we breathe. Then on the side of your customers, you also look at the product safety. You've got other components of that social bit, which is diversity, equity, inclusion. What is the ratio of men to women in the company? What is the pay disparity, the pay gap? How do you ensure that things like that somebody is working in one country is not earning less than his equivalent working in another country? How do you ensure that pay parity? How do you do that?
Hmm.
So that's on the social side. The third pillar is governance. And at this point, I think we all know about that. It's looking at the quality of the board members, the quality of your board, how they manage the business. How are they reporting? Are they transparent? What are the ethics around the board? And how do you also manage your supply chain? You can't say things are going well with the company when you are committing havoc along the lines of your supply chain. So it's also critical. So those are depending a little bit further the three key pillars of ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance.
Hmm. That is a brilliant way of giving us some of the practical benefits and also running us through the pillar of ESG. Our frequent viewer, Fagbola, all the way from the Asian city in Ibadan, is coming up with this question. From the sensitivity analysis of the trio, which one overrides the other the most among governance, social, and environment, looking at the effect on ESG reporting?
Oh, that's a very good question. I actually like that. If you ask me, the most important one is governance. It's typical when we look at Service Auxiliary and say, what is the key thing you need to worry? I say tone at the top. If the board doesn't focus on any of this, the company collapses. As the ESG begins to get recognition, begins to get fit, begins to grow, and we can see it here. For those of us, I'm in Canada, the impact of ESG on corporations, it's telling. You can say it. So if the board is not doing anything about it, if the governance is not taking it seriously, then none of these things will happen. They will not have a strategy to address the social issues. They will not have a strategy to address environmental issues. The business will have a run into a problem.
That is the German thing, and I want to believe that Fajbola picked that up. Governance is key and strategic out of the three, because it's like the umbrella that the rest resided. Let me just notify you that our viewers are not just here. I can see Dr. Abel are saying all the way from Mumbai in India, where the World Congress of Accountants is going on. He has to make it available that it's not just only while he's here in Nigeria, even all the way from India is connected to take and tap from the word of experience of our guest today. Let's proceed, Mr. Ichenfu. One of the social factors to consider in sustainable investment include a company's strengths and weaknesses in dealing with social trend, labor, and politics. How can a calculated focus on this factor increase profits and corporate responsibility?
Okay, so let me look at it from this perspective. Okay. If a company messes around its safety, product safety, that company will lose market share. And I can give you an example. I bought Volkswagen recently, last year, and all of a sudden I was trying to turn to the left on the road, and the vehicle couldn't go, couldn't move. And another vehicle was coming. So it was just God's grace that made me cross without having an accident. So I went back to the dealership and said, hey, this car, brand new car, this is my experience. When they looked at it and they said, well, guess what? Park it here. We're going to give you a replacement vehicle until we find the spare parts to fix it. And that took one whole month. I had a replacement vehicle that they rented for free for me. That's a cost on the business. And that's because somebody didn't take time to ensure that the microchip that's in that vehicle is well tested. And that's because in their supply chain, what they were telling me then was they've contacted the person who is going to supply the parts. They don't even have an ETA. They don't even know when that part will be delivered to them. So if you take that alone, they gave me a rented vehicle for one whole month and they paid for it. And when they fixed the vehicle, I paid nothing. That's a cost to the business because they ignored the health and safety issue associated with the technology they introduced into the business. So that's one. Two, if the private equity firms, the investment houses, the big institutional investors starts holding back funds to support your capital project, then you're not growing. The company is not going to grow. One of the things that has happened here is within 2 years, up to 2018 in Canada, the investment funds or investment firms that are incorporating ESG and assessing who they are going to fund grew by $2 trillion in Canada. Now, $2 trillion may not sound huge, but that represents more than 50% of investable funds within Canadian investment banking environment. So, in principle, 50% of the guys that will support your growth, if you are not ESG compliant, they will not support your growth. So that begins to hit at your ability to deliver as a company. It begins to hit on your profitability because you're not producing more, you're not getting better. On the other side, you look at human resources. The current generation will boycott anything that do not agree or you're not protecting the environment. They will boycott anything. I have those discussions with my kids, and they will say that they are not going to patronize the individual because they believe they are not doing enough for the environment, or they believe that their employment practices is not right. So they boycott them. So if you are being boycotted, the market share will drop. The guys who are responding to things like that, their market share will grow. So there are all sorts of issues. You can also look at it from an area of product liability. If I had an accident, if another vehicle ran into me that day, I would have filed a suit against Volkswagen. Not only would they fix the vehicle, insurance will fix it. I will also file a suit claiming certain things because that was stupid for them to have done that. So all along, some of these things that have been ignored before, as ESG is becoming strong and is being recognized and valued, it's going to erode the profitability of a business if that business doesn't take those into consideration.
Hmm. Hmm. That is a fine way, important because it has its own way of infusing into the bottom line, that is the profit of the organization. Let me tell our viewers that our guest is still very much present here, throwing your question for us to do justice to it. As we proceed, sir, is there a standard ESG framework? If yes, how does it look like? And if no, as accountant, we are very creative. How can we create one?
Yeah, that this is I like this question. The reason is, you know, in ESG, you are talking about social sciences, and these are the things we learn in university is that the world, the society, as a laboratory, you cannot hold anything constant. So everything changes. And that is where we have big issues as accountants and also great opportunity as accountants. There is no generally accepted um, ESG framework, none. But there are multiple. There is global reporting initiatives. There is the sustainability accounting standards. You did mention about integrated reporting council. They've come up with that. Even the International Standards Organization have one. There is carbon disclosure project, another one. There is task force on climate change. They have their own. There is a workforce disclosure initiative. So there are multiple organizations that have come up with that. But IFRS Foundation set up the International Sustainability Standards Board, and they are currently working on looking for a way of harmonizing all these voluntary compliance, all these voluntary standards to see whether there is something that will become a framework for us to start reporting going forward. So let's just hope, and they've made good progress. So let's just hope that in the next 2 years or so, we will come across an IFRS standard that will provide that framework for disclosure, that will provide that measurement for us, and will become part of the things that our financial reports will reflect.
So in no distance time, we want to believe that will definitely happen because the level at which this is going all the time in our reporting, yeah, we definitely have to have that infused into that, and we have a framework. All the way from Mumbai, India, Dr. Abel Asay is asking, what message do you have for entity? Please, can I have that question back? Uh, can I have that question back from Dr. Asay? Okay, while my team brings back the question. Okay, I have it back. He's asking that what message do you have entities which treats CSR initiative as charity rather than survival strategy, knowing fully well you said there's a step ahead of it. When it's being measured, targeted, it becomes ESG. So, what message do you have for that?
They should migrate it to ESG.
Hmm.
So create targets for it, determine KPIs, track it, report it. So um, um, it's not just charity. Now, having said that, nothing says that an organization should not take part in charitable activities. That's great, but it's not ESG. So long as you're doing that, but you cannot take that through a materiality assessment for the benefit of a capital market, that you cannot track it, you cannot have a KPI around it, then it's not ESG.
Hmm.
But it's good to have it.
Hmm.
An organization can support a soccer club in the community, that's great. But you can give money to motherless babies home, fantastic. That is corporate social responsibility.
Hmm.
But as soon as that organization can sit back and say, well, I have the stakeholders, the community, the government, the shareholders, the investing public, and all those people that I need to deal with, and my investors or the lenders or the insurance companies are interested in me doing these things for them, and they want to hold me accountable for it, then you can have that conversation. You're now in the realm of ESG.
Hmm. Yeah, while we proceed, let me especially appreciate our guests today who have been doing justice. And also to let you know that we have our viewers connected all over the country, outside the shore of Nigeria. I've seen people from Kebbi, Ibadan, Lagos, Benin City, Kwara, Kano, and the last question was all the way from Mumbai. Even when we are not in India, we are having the vibes of what is going on in Mumbai. So let's have questions flowing. I saw Fagbola saying that the network on the other side is not. We can always tell you that it will get better. We proceed, sir. How do organizations implement ESG, and how is ESG integrated into investment strategy?
Okay, that's a very important question as well. The and a difficult one. Okay. To implement ESG, most organizations rely currently, because there is no defined standard that applies everywhere. Most organizations rely mostly on what rating agencies provide, and I just mentioned there are a number of them. Some organizations can also develop their in-house ESG, and they follow through. The likes of the big four that have been involved in the Davos conference and we are leading in that area can also provide help. Having said that, it will require the risk analysis. So if you have, as an organization, there is an investment that you want to make, you can then start running it through what are the material factors in the environment and the social place, with respect to governance, that will impact that investment.
Hmm.
Which of those will our shareholders be interested in? Which of those will the bank be interested in? Which of those will the institutional investors, particularly those ones that can come in and when they pull out their shares, their share prices will collapse? So, what are they interested in? You need to engage them and figure out what they're interested in, what are concerned about, and then come up with how can I measure it. In that process, once that process is completed, you can determine what impact it will have on the investment that you're running. Now, it's also a function of the business you're in. If I'm working in the financial sector, let's say I'm working for a company that is giving loans to companies to support their projects, the capital projects, even if it is working capital. I could create all that. I am interested in this water management. I'm interested in energy management, and I can create drawing lessons from the third-party analysis and say, okay, your company needs to demonstrate this before we can give you this amount of money. And if you do not demonstrate this, if you give it these funds, the interest rate that you pay us will be X plus one. If you're demonstrating, it will be X minus one, that sort of thing. So when you create that for my company then to invest, that becomes me integrate. That's basically myself integrating ESG principles in my investment decisions. So on the side of the funding company, yes. On the side of the company that is developing their product, they will also factor that in. So that's how you do that. But it requires a lot of engagement, a lot of analysis to figure out what is the audience, which audience am I addressing, and what are the things that are critical for them. Now, what is critical for them today may not be critical for them next year. Because, as I said, in the social environment is the world. Anything can change anytime.
We have been having a very insightful session with Mr. Ichenfu, FCA, all the way from Canada, and it has built our knowledge base seriously. Like we keep saying, this is a platform where you can make your product and services known to all our global viewers. And on that note, Mr. Nchefu, I want to go on the very small commercial break, pay bills so that we can flow. And to our viewers at home, just stay tuned. I'm sure that your pen and your book is still by your side to take more insight from our guest of today. Stay tuned. I'll be right back shortly.
Thank you.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It is a great evening with Mr. Izemwa Ichefu FCA as we have been both interacting on the rising social component of environment, social, and governance, ESG. Welcome back, Mr. Ichefu.
Thank you.
Yeah, while we proceed, let me still tell our viewers that the platform is open for us to bring in our questions so that we can learn more and have clarity about the topic of discuss of today. Mr. Chenfo, can I run through this by saying, uh, can you give us insight into the typical ESG checklist and ESG key performance index? That is KPI.
Okay. So, um, as, as, we, as we said, there are three components of this: environmental, social. Now, and it depends on the industry. It depends on what is important to your people. But let me provide more of a very generic topic that we could look at. So within the environment, you could look at things around your water management or your energy management, how you're managing energy. I can look at your greenhouse gas emissions or how you're managing wastes. It's an issue. On the social side, um, things around your how you manage your labor, the people you employed, the how do you deal with them? What kind of training you provide? What kind of relationship management style you have with your workers? That's one another area. You can also look at your community engagement. Um, how are you engaging the community where you operate? How are you engaging the government within the local area where you operate? If you're producing things, are there issues with respect to the product quality? Do you have that? Are you considering those? Those are the areas you will probably worry about. Then on governance, you are thinking in terms of corporate transparency. Is it how are you disclosing what you're doing? Are you promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion? What ratio of individuals are there? Now, in Canada, after George Floyd's incident, one guy in here came up with Black North Initiative, and he had what he called a CEO pledge. He started that with very few CEOs. Now, most of the big CEOs in Canada have signed up that thing. And the quick questions he will ask them is, let's look at the proportion. For example, you go to the bank and say, let's look at the proportion of the people who are your customers. Where they come from. How is that being reflected in your management appointments? How is that being reflected in your board appointments? That's diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are also issues around climate risk. How is the board reflecting those? So there are multiple of these things that could come up. You could have multiple checklists depending on the nature of your industry and the rating agency that you're working with. So it varies. As I highlighted earlier, more than 6 of them. If you go through any one of those, they will be able to provide an organization with different kinds of things. But our job as the accountant is to help the board navigate which of those is more relevant to our business. Now, if I then get into specific KPIs, give you some examples of specific KPIs. One, with respect to pay parity, you could say, what's the percentage of pay equality? How many between men and women, who earns more? Are we paying women more than men? What is also the ratio between the person who joins the company and the CEO of the company? How do you provide that ratio, that information, determining the wage level? And people will demand that. And it's important. For health and safety, this is one that we all know has been there for quite a long time. Reportable cases of incidents. Now, if you have lost time incidents, people or fatalities, how many people die in your company operations? How many people have couldn't come to work because they were bruised or something happened to them? How many people have lost their limbs? In oil and gas, it's a big thing. Even before ESG became an issue, it was a big deal. It's always being monitored. It's always being reported. In any meeting, that's the first thing that managers and the directors will want to talk about, health and safety. And even now, when we hold departmental meetings, the first thing, let's have a safety moment because it's a key issue. We just want to drum it into people's head that if it is not safe, don't do it. Because if they do it, they may lose their limb. And that culture, if it's not embedded in every person, that will ruin this ESG metric for the organization. And there are companies, investors that will not invest in your company as a result of that. Actually, one of the big oil and gas companies in Canada, their CEO was made to resign last year. And why? While he was the CEO, 3 people have been killed in the operations over a period of time. And that was enough for the investors to insist that he needs to step down. He stepped down. He was forced out of it. So these things are gradually taking root, and they are making impact.
Gradually taking root, and it's having its own space. That last statement will take me with this. As a Nigerian and an expert on this topic of today, Can you give us your fair and objective assessment of ESG, consciousness and policy, and even implementation in Nigeria today? I know you are out there in Canada, but you have your roots here in Nigeria. What's your fair and objective assessment?
Okay, so that's a good one. Let me look at it from first the regulations that we have. Then we can talk about implementation and how it's my thought process around it. Um, I've talked about investments, institutional investors. There are about, I can count about 10 institutional investors in Nigeria. The IBTCs corporations, name them. There is the FBN Capital. There are a number of them. Sometime in 2012, CBN and Bankers Committee came up with what they call the Nigerian Sustainable Banking Principles. And if you look at the 9 things they listed, they are all about ESG. They expect banks in relating and giving loans and assessing loans and support for companies to look at how they respect human rights in their business operations and activities, how that company is minimizing the negative impact of their operations on the communities where they operate and also on the environment where they operate. There are a number of them. The question is, can these institutions say that they have been applying this in their loan considerations, in their funding considerations? Have they been doing that? I don't have the answer to that, but I guess that's a food for us, for thought for us to look at it. Is that really the case? Then you look at some social regulations that currently exist in Nigeria. We have the Factories Act. We have the Employees Compensation Act. Okay. I was in Lagos when one manufacturing company had fire incident and the workers in that company burnt. And why did that happen? Because they just come to work and they lock the factory and they work overnight and they lock the factory and the big guys go allow these guys to work. So when something went wrong and there was fire outbreak, they couldn't escape. And those workers died. But we have Factories Act, and it was there in 2004. What compensation or what penalties did that company pay? How did we implement that to ensure that that happened? Now, it could be my brother, it could be me, it could have been any person. But in terms of regulations we also have to help people access housing. There is the regulation around National Housing Funding Act of 2004. We have those. We have the National Health Insurance Act. We have that. There is a Pension Act. All these things that acts we created, the question is, how are we implementing them? Number one. As a country, how are we implementing them? As people sitting on the board of corporations or people who are in the companies where we work and we influence company policies, how many of us as accountants know the existence of these things and push them through to ensure that the company is abiding by these principles? That's the big question for each and every one of us to answer. So, do we have those in Nigeria? Yes. Are they being implemented? I think your guess is as good as mine. But I do know, with my background in oil and gas industry, that when it comes to health and safety, the oil companies do not joke with it. And whenever there are people who are killed in the operations, the country chair is summoned to the head office, and the big guys have a very harsh word with the guy, and it could affect his pay to ensure that people do not die in the operations. Part of the reason why those big guys are creating that environment, that's its scenario, it's because the shareholders in their countries are holding them accountable. So play that back. Are we holding the companies in Nigeria accountable? Each and every one of us. Are we holding the companies in Nigeria accountable for such things? If we do, then the shareholders and the board will listen and take certain action. So it's, for me, it's an evolving thing, and I believe that over time we should be in a position to get there where these things deliver greater things for the society as a whole.
It's an evolution that will definitely transform the scope when it comes to this part of the climb, Nigeria, in implementing some of these ESG policy that we're talking about. As we coast home, Mr. Echemfu, I want to state that as a chartered accountant, fellow of our great institute for that matter, and a financial accounting guru from that which I have been receiving this evening from your lecture. I want to ask, is there any relationship between ESG and the GDP of a nation? I know you spoke about the profitability aspect of it the other time, but what's the contribution to the GDP of a nation?
Yeah, without sounding political, because that's not my intention. Um, I was listening to one of the party leaders in our country narrating an experience and the discussion that he had with a professor in Harvard Business School, Harvard or one of those Ivy Leagues. And a sentence he made that struck me was that the guy told him, go back to your country, get involved in public policy, because private wealth impoverishes people.
Hmm.
Public wealth creates prosperity.
Hmm. Hmm.
Public wealth is about our environment, it's about our social structure, it's about the way we govern those things. If we can start doing those things, every other person will be rich. GDP will grow. And I keep referencing to this all the time. While I was in Lagos, and we had this guy that sells that if you wanted FX, you go to Malam and he'll come. So every morning, this guy will go from one office door to the other, looking for who has naira to exchange to dollars, and then he will go buy it for you. When the government introduced GSM technology, the next time I saw the guy, what he told me was, "Oh, this is my phone number. If you need it, call me." So I didn't, he didn't need to travel to the office and walk the floor
Hmm.
every day. All he needed to do is to give a cell phone number. So he will only move when somebody calls him,
Hmm.
and then he will deliver it for you. So that's social, we may call it economic, but that's social privilege that people now have, which at the time, if you remember, we used to say, somebody said that having a telephone in Nigeria was a luxury.
Well, luxury.
Yeah, that's luxury that has now been made available to everyone, has made this guy able to sell more FX to different people. So he's made more
Hmm.
profit. He can build a house. He can send his kids to school
Hmm.
more than he would have done before. Because before then, he would be in one location for a long time. Now he can be in multiple locations where the business actually exists because somebody called him on phone. So that's an example of how these things that improve the lives of every other person in the society that has a great impact on every other person increases the GDP of a nation.
Hmm. If there is nothing to take home today, I can tell you that I picked the word from Mr. Jeffo to say private wealth impoverished, but public wealth increase prosperity. In closing, sir, ICAN is always open to ideas that will positively advance the growth of our members the accounting profession, and the Nigerian business environment. Uh, in your parting shot, what will you suggest to members, the institute, on the rising social component of environment, social, and governance, especially in Nigeria? In a minute.
Um, this one we've just done is a key thing, which I very much appreciate the Institute for letting it happen. But the thing I need to stress is that as accountants, we are highly positioned in companies to bring about governance. ICAN will encourage accountants to follow through these principles. Let the various companies that they sit on the board, that they participate in, that they work in, discuss issues about ESG, bring it and recognize it as a risk to the business, and develop strategies to make sure that they are addressed.
That is okay, proceed, sir.
Yeah, so that for me is critical. And the other thing is, we do not wait to be a board member to influence that. At every level in the organization, have that mindset in the things that you're doing. So you're not there to work, but you're also there for the greater good of the population. If that's the mindset each and every one of us go to work with, if we can get that into our heads, then when you become a board member, you can implement. You can also hold your supervisor, your manager accountable on that basis. So it builds up. An example I will give to you that sort of helps me buttress this is in the UK, the rule is because people work in the North Sea, if you do not hold the handrails, if anything happens, you fall into the North Sea, that's it. The company felt, okay, I'm not in the North Sea, but I'm in the office. Why do I need to hold handrails? No, 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 no. We do not want to create a culture that is different from what you when you're in the North Sea working in the oil field and when you're in the office. Therefore, every person, wherever you are within this company, if you're climbing any stairs, you need to hold handrails. And if you do not, somebody will pick you up on that. That is the mental model we need to imbibe into accountants. That you are not just there to work and make money. You are there to ensure that their output is for the greater good of everyone. And we will make that progress. That's it for me.
A very beautiful way to come to the end of the show. And the submission is simple as professional accountant. Don't just go there to work. Try as much as possible to make the impact. And as it is, think ESG, speak ESG, move ESG, and portray it to the whole world because on the longer side, it's going to contribute to the bottom line that we are known for. Mr. Izenwa Ichemfo, FCA, it's my great pleasure to have you as our guest this evening and also spending your well, in this part of the world, evening, I know you are in your day over there with us. Thank you very much for creating all this time. Want to believe that when next we call, you'll definitely make out time to be part of this program. And to all our viewers, before I take my leave, let me quickly pass this information to us that your institute, my institute, ICAN, is organizing a budget symposium. Team budget of physical consolidation and transition, realism or mirage. And this is coming up on Friday, November 25th, 2022 by 10 a.m. It's a virtual program, and I want to believe that the link is out there for every one of us to definitely hook up to and be part of the program for 10 a.m. on Friday, November 25th. Our president will definitely be there. With the chairman of session is our revered past president, Doyin Owolabi. And the keynote speaker will be given by our own Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. And we have several panelists that will definitely be part of the program. This, I beg to let you know that it attracts to MCPD credit. On that note, we have come to the end of the show for today, Tuesday, 22nd day of the month of November 2022. And I want to promise you that stay tuned by Thursday. I'll be here again to give you another insightful topic with a seasoned professional as a guest. Till then, stay blessed. I remain your host, Olusesan Okwade, FCA. Bye for now.